Part 99. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1008. I just came back from my hometown. I'm so tired. I'll update more tomorrow. After Xiao Binky and his son were imprisoned, Lu Yui's status in the Xiao family plummeted. Originally, she stayed in her hometown to take care of her parents-in-law, but at that time, her brother-in-law and sister-in-law were all fawning over her. Now, they almost don't even want to look at her. As for old man Xiao and old Mrs. Xiao, they don't have a good attitude toward their daughter-in-law. They feel that the reason why their son is what he is today is because his daughter-in-law is not virtuous enough. As for whether their idea is logical or not, that doesn't matter. Every day I get up early to cook for my parents-in-law, and then go to the morning market to buy groceries. When I get home, I start cleaning and washing clothes. After all this work, I give my parents-in-law massages, and it's lunchtime again. At noon, brother-in-law Xiao Binghua's son and daughter are coming to their grandparents' house for lunch. The son is the eldest, he is 19 years old this year, and his daughter is 18 years old. It is the time when appetite is strong, and she is picky about food, or she is influenced by adults. The two of them were extremely rude to her and often picked on her while eating. Old Xiao and Mrs. Xiao sat there and let their grandchildren bully their eldest daughter-in-law without caring a bit. After lunch, the old man and the old lady began to take a lunch break, and she sat there making toys. She basically made about 300 toys in one afternoon. She was so tired that she couldn't lift her neck, but she didn't dare to rest at all. Thinking about the past days, she would often burst into tears. After this incident, she had a deeper understanding of human nature and became more disappointed with it. When she went to visit her husband and son, they both said that it was the Zhou family who harmed them, otherwise, they would definitely not be like this now. At first, she also hated the Zhou family, but now, she feels that they should be hated even more. Not the Zhou family, but my own family. If it wasn't for the sake of saving face in front of a large family, or if it wasn't for their own vanity, how could they make that choice? Do something like that? But she could only keep these thoughts in her heart. She believed that if her husband's family knew that she thought like this, they would immediately kick her out of the Xiao family. And she knew it. They tormented her like this just because they wanted her to leave the Xiao family on her own. The more I think about it, the chillier I feel. Originally, when Xiao Binky was in power, she stayed in her hometown to take care of her parents-in-law. Speaking of which, no matter how many wrong things Xiao Binky did, there is one thing that is still worthy of praise. That was his filial piety. At that time, father-in-law and mother-in-law would always praise his son for being filial and his daughter-in-law for being considerate. But now, she still took care of them as before, but the two elders always said that she was a broomstick who had harmed her son and the whole family. She didn't understand, how could she harm them? Do they really think she doesn't know? Isn't it just for the house in her name? But why don't they think about it? When their husband was in power, their brother-in-law and sister-in-law didn't take care of them. Now, if the house is really taken back and belongs to them, they will take care of them. Also, my brother-in-law and sister-in-law's work is not as good as before, so can I blame her? Then who should she blame? After Xiao Binky's accident, her parents' family also became very cold towards her. They were afraid that she would embarrass them and show up in their eyes if she went back. If it weren't for the belief that she wanted to wait for her husband to come out, she would probably really do it. I can't stand it anymore. The severe pain in her waist made Lu Yui come back to her senses. When she looked up, she saw her mother-in-law holding a walking stick and staring at her angrily. Seeing her look over, she immediately cursed, "You broomstar, you wash like this, you put so much washing powder on just a few pieces of clothing and it's all over the floor. Do you think you're living a comfortable life or do you want to throw us to death?" After the old lady said this, Lu Yui realized that the area around the basin was wet. The floor was made of cement and was smooth. It would indeed become slippery if water fell on it. She quickly apologized and said to clean it up immediately. The old lady then turned around and left, cursing, and after hearing the unpleasant words from her mouth countless times, she no longer felt anything. Grandmother. She must be hallucinating. Hey, if she stays in this house any longer, she will probably become mentally ill. But, where else can she go except here? Grandmother. With the little man hugging her legs tightly and shouting sweetly, Lu Yui was stunned for a while before she believed that this was not a dream, her granddaughter was really here. Ying-er. Lu Yui stroked her granddaughter's black hair with trembling hands. The smooth feeling made her feel happy again for her original decision. If the child stayed in the Lu family, it would really be ruined, but now. It's white and tender, how can it still look like its original? The little girl looked at Lu Yui with a happy face. Grandma, I won 4th place in the city in the arithmetic competition, so my 7th uncle and my aunt came with me to see Grandma. Lu Yui quickly raised her head and looked around. The little girl hurriedly said, Uncle 7 and Auntie are in the car. They said that I haven't seen Grandma for a long time, and they asked me to talk to Grandma alone to express my feelings. As she said this, she presented a small box in the small box as a treasure. As if passing it to Lu Yui, Grandma, this is for you. What? Lu Yui took it and opened it, tears rolled down uncontrollably. The little granddaughter was so attentive and felt so sorry for her. Grandma, don't cry. The little girl wiped the tears from Lu Yui's face. My little aunt said that crying all the time is bad for your eyes. Grandma, your eyes are not good, so you can't cry. Okay, Grandma, don't cry. Lu Yui quickly wiped away her tears and squeezed out a smile. Grandma is just happy. Ying-er knows that she feels sorry for Grandma at such a young age, but Ying-er, who gave her the money to buy glasses? My aunt gave it to me, but the whole family agrees to buy glasses. And this? The little girl took out a small bag from the bag she was carrying. This is put on the crook of the leg. Now there's no need for it yet. In winter, Grandma can put it on and her legs won't hurt. These gloves. She took out another pair of rubber gloves. You can wear them when washing clothes. Grandma's hands won't be so cracked. There's so much blood. Unable to control herself any longer, Lu Yui hugged the little girl and cried loudly. She thought that when she first had this little granddaughter, she was also extremely unhappy. The grandson represented her roots. This is the deep-rooted idea of her generation. At that time, she was dreaming that her son would give her another grandson. Josei's belly had been quiet, so she became more and more irritable, and her patience with her granddaughter became less and less. Being yelled at and beaten is common. But now. Grandma, don't cry. When Ying-er grows up, she can make money. Just take Grandma and live a good life. The little girl patted Lu Yui's back like an adult and coaxed her softly. Why are you crying? Lu Yui's cry finally startled Mrs. Xiao. The moment she saw Ying-er, she didn't recognize her, so she frowned and poked Lu Yui with a walking stick. If you don't work hard, why are you crying while holding a child? Ying-er really didn't have a good impression of this old lady, and her little face tensed up, staring straight at old Mrs. Xiao. Why do you beat my grandma? At this moment, Mrs. Xiao also recognized who this well-dressed little girl was, and immediately snorted, I am your great-grandmother. Little bastard, are you polite? You are not worthy of being my great-grandmother. The little girl stared at her stubbornly. You force me to do too much work, you beat me, and you don't give me delicious food. I don't want a great-grandmother like you. Hey, it's different now that we've climbed a high branch. Mrs. Xiao snorted coldly, turned around and walked in. Lu Yui, Xiaobing, and Xiaoqian are about to finish school, so just wait. Lu Yui's expression flashed with panic, then she stood up and took Ying'er's little hand and walked out. Ying'er, Grandma will go with you to thank your seventh uncle and little aunt, and then you can go home quickly. You don't have to worry about Grandma in the future. Grandma will be fine. As long as you study hard and make yourself promising in the future, Grandma will be happiest. On the way back, Ying'er kept her lips pursed and said nothing. Chu Xia could naturally guess the reason, but it was hard for her to say anything. No matter how kind-hearted she was, she couldn't just ignore the trouble. Moreover, Lu Yui was not kind to the Zhou family at first. Now that the Zhou family can satisfy Ying'er's wishes and let her and Zhou Huikang accompany Ying'er to see her, it is already a great tolerance. However, the Lu family is indeed rubbish. Fortunately, Lu Yui sent Ying'er back in the first place. Otherwise, I don't know what kind of disaster it would have caused to Ying'er. She was confused. The Xiao family's second child was a child. Why was Ying'er so displeasing to them? If boys are said to be favored over girls, then Xiao Xiaoqian, the daughter of the second oldest child in the family, is a girl. Just now, when they were leaving, the girl happened to go home and saw Lu Yui standing outside talking to them. She had a nose that was neither a nose nor a face, so she asked Lu Yui if lunch was ready. Speaking of which, Lu Yui is basically the nanny of the Xiao family now. After returning home, Ying'er said hello to her elders, then hid in her room and locked herself up. When she was called out for lunch, her eyes were as red as a rabbit. Ying'er. After the meal, Mrs. Zhou called the little girl to her side. Why are you crying? They bully Grandma. The little girl's mouth dropped, and her tears began to roll down again. Mrs. Zhou sighed, then what do you want Grandma to do? Grandma said that she is very grateful for what our family is doing now. She wants me to study hard and be a promising child in the future. After a pause, the little girl looked at Mrs. Zhou seriously. Grandma, if I become successful in the future, can I take my grandma to live with me? Of course, old Mrs. Zhou agreed happily. Ying'er is Grandma's granddaughter, so of course there is no problem in taking Grandma to live with her. Grandma, Grandpa, Grandpa, won't they be angry with Ying'er? Of course not. Ying'er is so filial, why should we be angry with you? Thank you, great-grandma. The little girl immediately became happy. In the future, I will not only be filial to Grandma, but also to be filial to my great-grandma, great-grandpa, grandpa, grandpa, eldest grandma, and second grandpa. Listening to the little girl counting the family members one by one, the elders sitting around laughed heartily. In any case, it was really the wisest to keep the child at that time, not because she said she should be filial. But because she is really kind and filial, and she really doesn't complain. When Chu Xia and Zhou Huikang accompanied Ying'er to Xiao's house, Zhao Yulan and Lin Baohe accompanied Mr. Zhao and Mrs. Zhao to Zhao Qian's house. They didn't come back until mid-afternoon. Chu Xia hurriedly grabbed Mrs. Zhao and asked about the situation. Look at how anxious you are. Old Mrs. Zhao poked her forehead in a funny way, and then said, Sister Qian has survived it, and she gets along well with her mother-in-law. They treat that child like a baby. Lu Zhenqiang is also good to Qian. Although the two occasionally quarrel, in general, Lu Zhenqiang will still let Qian. The only thing that's not so good is her sister-in-law, whose attitude has never been very good. However, she has already made an engagement, and it will be fine if she gets married by the end of the year. Sigh. The old lady sighed. As far as Qian's situation is concerned, your grandpa and I are contented to be here today. This child has not been a worry-free person since he was a child. Now, we can finally feel at ease. That's good. I couldn't go with you. Sister Qian didn't say anything, right? Although she and Zhao Qian are not close now, they are not as stiff as before. Chu Xia asked. She asked about you. We told her that you had something to do today, but we couldn't arrange it, so we had to part ways with you. After hearing this, she was just worried about your health and didn't complain at all. Xia, grandma is not saying good things for Qian, she is really different, people. Mrs. Zhao sighed again, maybe you really have to suffer a loss before you can learn something. She read so many times in the novel that she didn't remember anything at all. Once she suffered a loss, she understood everything and saw away everything. No matter what, this is a good thing. Yes, it's a good thing, but... After a pause, Mrs. Zhao said, however, she should still be worried in her heart. You also know that the child is not hers at all, and the doctor also after all, she can't be born again. In order to hide it from outsiders, the Lu family used this method. She was actually worried that the Lu family kept her like this for the sake of the Zhou family. As time went by, would it be because she could not add real blood to the Lu family? Dislike her. After hesitating, Chu Xia decided to tell Mrs. Zhao the truth, Grandma, Sister Qian's worry should not exist. To be honest, I was a little strange about the Lu family's approach, so I told Zhou Mikang, and then he secretly sent someone to investigate. In fact, Lu Zhenqiang was injured by Zhong Hongying and could not regenerate, so he used this method to cover up, not so much for Sister Qian, but for himself. Xia, are you telling the truth? Mrs. Zhao looked in disbelief. When did this happen? Just a few days ago. After I found out, I was too embarrassed to say it, and... Chu Xia smiled sarcastically, and I'm embarrassed to talk about this topic for no reason. To be continued, LW0. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1009. 1 Update. Knowing the truth of the matter, Mrs. Zhao sighed heavily. She thought that Lu Zhenqiang really cared about her granddaughter. Now it seems that she had no choice but to make concessions. However, such an appearance can how long does it last? Grandma. Although she was a little embarrassed, Chu Xia still blushed and comforted Mrs. Zhao, Lu Zhenqiang just can't give birth, but he is still a man. After being stunned for a moment, Mrs. Zhao felt embarrassed and rubbed Chu Xia's head with a smile, Grandma knows, and it's hard for you. He. Chu Xia smiled uncomfortably, it's nothing difficult. There aren't so many taboos when talking to Grandma, he. You don't have so many taboos. What are you doing? Mrs. Zhao looked at her granddaughter funny, she is also going to be a mother. There is nothing hard to say about this kind of thing. However, just now I was wondering how Lu Zhenqiang would let Zhong Hongying go. Now I understand, Qian can't give birth anyway, it's all like that whether he cares about it or not. He deserves it. After a pause, Chu Xia said, moreover, if it wasn't like this, he wouldn't be able to live peacefully with Sister Qian. Speaking of which, I have to thank Zhong Hongying for this. Mrs. Zhao smiled and shook her head, if Lu Zhenqiang hears what you said, he will definitely go crazy. I'm telling the truth. Chu Xia spread her hands, it was his initiative to find Sister Qian, and it was also his initiative to agree to get married. Besides, Sister Qian also has his child. Because of his betrayal, she almost let Sister Qian lose her life and let him suffer such a punishment, it is already light enough. That's right. Old Mrs. Zhao sighed, anyway, things are already like this, and there's no point in thinking about it. As long as he treats Qian well, that's enough. Speaking of which, Qian herself is not a good person. She has had high ambitions and low abilities since she was a child. It is worthwhile for her to wake up to what she has ended up like today. It is better than falling down again in the future. Grandma. Chu Xia smiled, did you and Grandpa worry about me like this before? Yes, you kid was not easy to worry about before, but you are better than Qian, and you have become sensible all of a sudden. Your grandpa and I no longer worry about you. Besides, you are much better than Kian in terms of character and personality. Your grandfather and I are worried about you, and we are worried about your sister Kian. You, Sister Kian, are just like your second aunt. You are obviously different in 10 things, but you still have to feel that you are the best in everything, hey. The old lady sighed and stopped talking. Grandma, my second aunt is different now. What are you worried about? Chusia smiled and hugged the old lady's arm. If I had known you were like this, I wouldn't have talked about this topic. Grandma has stopped being annoyed a long time ago. I just thought of it and said a few words. Old Mrs. Zhao quickly changed her smile and said, okay, let's say something happy. Today your grandpa will go all by himself. He didn't need anyone to help him, he even got in and out of the car by himself. Really? Chusia immediately looked surprised. During this period, Mr. Zhao's body has recovered a lot, but he always needs the help of crutches or artificial support. Now it seems that the old man has recovered more than expected. Quick. Yes, he refused to help himself. He was a little trembling when he walked at first, but then he became more comfortable. The old lady also looked happy. It seems that when his little grandson is born, by then, he was just like a normal person. He is a normal person in the first place, but his activities are a little restricted. Chusia smiled and glanced at the grandfather who was fighting with Mr. Zhou, and said, if grandma hears what he said, he will definitely protest again. Mrs. Zhao smiled helplessly, you kid, you are really good at finding faults. Hee hee. Glancing at the time, Luo Xiaoxian looked at Mrs. Zhao, I won't pester grandma anymore. We are going back to the capital tomorrow. Grandma should go talk to my uncle and aunt for a while. I'll also find Chi Hui. Let's have a little chat with my sister. I haven't seen her in the past few days. I finally met her, but I can't let her run away again. Mrs. Zhao smiled and shook her head. She is afraid that you will ask about her and Lulian Bao, so she is not trying to avoid you. Chusia had a dark streak. At first, she just asked to understand the situation. After knowing Zhao Qiui's attitude, she didn't mention it again. Okay. Sister, I'm going back to the capital tomorrow. Don't you want to talk to me? No longer pretending to be stupid, Zhao Qiui looked at Chusia with a smile. Seeing how lively you and grandma were chatting, I didn't go over to join in the fun. She pointed to Luo Xiaoxian sitting next to her. If you don't believe me, ask Xiaoxian. Luo Xiaoxian nodded quickly. Yes, Sister Qiui and I originally planned to go there. Seeing that you and grandma seemed to be chatting about some secret, we didn't have the nerve to go over and disturb you. You two sisters-in-law are wearing the same pair of pants now. Chusia curled her lips. Your mutual testimony is invalid. I don't believe it. What I said is true. Luo Xiaoxian said with a black line, don't you know what my personality is? Besides, Sister Qiui and I have known each other for a long time. How could I deliberately perjury just to please her? Sister-in-law, it's really inappropriate for you to call me that again. Zhao Qiui looked at her sister-in-law helplessly. That's all when you and my brother were not married. How can I deserve it if you call me that now? But I'm really embarrassed to ask you to call your name. I'm sorry, but you have to get used to it. Chusia answered, Sister Qiui is my brother's biological sister. You are obviously her sister-in-law, but you call her sister. Don't you think it's weird? Come to think of it, I want to do it too. It's better to call you sister-in-law. Luo Xiaoxian interrupted her anxiously, pull her down quickly. If you call me sister-in-law, I will really have to find a hole in the ground to crawl in. Does it need to be so exaggerated? Chusia looked at her speechlessly. You are my sister-in-law, and you are the one my brother Mingyuan is marrying. Why am I embarrassed to call you that? Okay, from now on. Biting her lip, Luo Xiaoxian looked at Zhao Qiui, opened her mouth, but not a single sound came out. After a long while, she finally got into a good mood. Kiwi. This shouting, isn't it too serious? Hey, helpless. Zhao Kiwi had no choice but to respond solemnly, but there was a slight embarrassment on her face. Luo Xiaoxian also felt that her behavior was a bit childish, so she embarrassedly pushed Chu Xia. I hate it, it's all your fault, I don't even know what to do. R1152. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1010. How can I and your second uncle not be sorry for you? You want to treat us like this? Zhao Yulan stared at the laughing Lu Miking with red eyes. You can rest assured that even if we get married in early summer, no one will care about me and your second uncle. I won't take any advantage of you. Get in the house. Lin Chudong pushed Lu Miking and smiled naively at Zhao Yulan. Second aunt, Miking has such a temper. In fact, she has no bad intentions. Don't be angry. / left bracket fastest update all at SI Novel Network / Stop pretending to be a good person here. Lu Miking did not accept Lin Chudong's affection. She twisted her body to avoid his hand and showed a sarcastic smile to Chu Xia. Don't you just want to recruit a son-in-law? I would like to know how you will live with a son-in-law who comes to your house. Is it possible that the son-in-law will have to share the same bed with his father-in-law and his mother-in-law? These words were so vicious that Zhao Yulan was so angry that she trembled like chaff. Lu Miking, try saying one more word and see if I don't tear your mouth apart. Lin Baohe, who had been silent all this time, heard this. His body trembled violently, and he immediately rushed to Lu Miking. Before the other party could react, he said, "Pa," and slapped him with a slap. Lu Miking's yellow face was clearly marked with 5 white fingerprints and then slowly turned red. She stared at Lin Baohe with a look of disbelief. The scene fell into a deathly silence. Lin Baohe's character is that of a super good-natured person. Not to mention hitting people, he usually doesn't even scold him even if others bully him. Therefore, his sudden action made everyone unable to recover, including Zhao Yulan and Lin Chuxia. Ouch! Lu Miking, who had come to her senses, rushed towards Lin Baohe and scratched his face. Lin Baohe, who had slapped Lu Miking like a tiger descending a mountain just now, was now as honest as a sheep and motionless. Let Lu Miking act recklessly. Things happened too fast. When everyone came to their senses and pulled Lu Miking away, Lin Baohe's face was already covered with blood stains. Dad. Lin Chuxia's nose was sore. Ever since she came to this era, her understanding of Lin Baohe was that he was always silent and patient. She could feel his love for her daughter. However, she never imagined that he would love his daughter to this extent. Lin Baohe grinned at his daughter. Xia, don't be angry with your mother. The implication is that your mother slapped you because of Lu Miking. I have returned that slap to Lu Miking, so don't be angry with your mother. Angry? Dad, I'm not angry with my mother anymore. I'm really not angry with my mother anymore. No matter what age Lin Chuxia was, she was not someone who liked to shed tears. She tried her best to hold back her tears and turned her eyes to Lu Miking again. Her washed eyes were clear without any impurities. Lu Miking felt a little uncomfortable when she looked at her. She snorted and looked away. Since our grandparents gave us this room, that's what belongs to us, no one can take it away. This is what I didn't finish talking about just now. After finishing speaking, Lin Chuxia took Lin Baohe and Zhao Yulan to the left and right. Dad, Mother, go back to the house. The couple let their daughter lead them into the house. As for the big family outside, after the commotion just now, they no longer have the habit of listening to the crack in the door. Bang, the door to the east room also closed. Zhao Yulan, who had regained consciousness, grabbed her daughter's arm and said urgently, "Xia, how could you say that? If it spreads, you will be laughed at by others. How can you be so reckless, kid?" Chu Xia smiled calmly, "Mom, find a clean cloth and wipe Dad's face." "Dad, you are serious? If you don't fight back, don't fight back. Why don't you hide from the head office?" He. Lin Baohe smiled naively, "It's okay, Dad doesn't care, she has such a temper, if she doesn't get it, she will bully you when Dad and Mom are not at home, Dad will be embarrassed." "It doesn't matter, Xia's face can't be hurt, she still has to find her husband's family." "Dad." Lin Chuxia opened and closed her mouth, not knowing what to say. In her impression, this was the longest conversation Lin Baohe had ever had with her. She always thought that Lin Baohe only knew one word. Just a single sentence. "Your father used to talk a lot." Zhao Yulan found a clean cloth, dipped it in water, and helped Lin Baohe wipe the blood on his face, while saying, "It's just that after being wronged, he didn't want to talk anymore." "Who wronged Dad?" Chu Xia looked at Lin Baohe curiously. Lin Baohe's face looked obviously unnatural. "No one, no one." "Baohe, don't hide it, tell the child. It's such a big deal today, so let's tell it." Alas, Zhao Yulan sighed heavily. At that time, Shuchun also shouted out. One by one. Lin Baohe covered his head and sighed, "When I was a child, I gave them everything, even a stone can cover the heat. How come each one of them doesn't look like a family? Son, father, mother, are what Chuchun said true?" Chu Xia looked at them seriously. "Why have I never heard you say that? What is going on?" Zhao Yulan took a deep breath and said, "Xia, when you were little, you were closer to your fat aunt than to your father and mother. She was also really kind to you. Mother told you the matter, but you can't talk to her. Your fat aunt is heartbroken. If you promise mother, mother will tell you." "I promise." Hearing what Zhao Yulan said, Lin Chuxia suddenly realized. She had always felt that the fat aunt's family was ridiculously good to her family. Sure enough, there was a reason. After Luo Gangshun's eldest son, Luo Hunky, was born, he was extremely weak due to insufficient milk supply. Luo Gangshun felt sorry for his son and often took advantage of his position in the brigade to sneak some millet home to feed his wife. As a result, Lin Baohe happened to bump into him one time. In order to resolve the embarrassment between the two of them, Lin Baohe also grabbed the millet and put it in his pocket. Luo Gang was stunned for a moment and quickly reached out to stop it. Unexpectedly, the village reporter Chen Feng Gang rushed in at that moment. When he saw the two people's actions, his face immediately turned dark. Then, he held a village meeting to report criticism, closed a small dark room, and wrote an inspection. After a lot of tossing, the cheerful Lin Baohe's personality took a 180-degree turn. He often didn't say a word for a whole day, and just kept his head down. Work. Luo Gangshun, who was promoted as a positive model, couldn't bear the condemnation in his heart. He wanted to step forward and take the responsibility together with Lin Baohe, but was stopped by the fat ant who threatened his life. Later, the fat ant went to find Zhao Yulan, who was engaged to Luo Gangshun, and told her the whole story. She cried and begged her not to tell the story and not to leave Lin Baohe because of it. New upload, please recommend, please collect. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1011. One update arrived. Crying, feeling that something was wrong with Zhou Mikang's voice, Chu Xia raised her head and looked at him seriously. For a moment, her tearful eyes were filled with a smile. She put her arms around his neck and pressed down hard. She quickly pressed a gentle kiss to his lips. The teacher, who was still a little embarrassed at first, suddenly had surprise in his eyes. He squatted down in front of his little wife, put his ear to her bulging belly and listened. The little guy inside seemed to feel his father's breath and began to move. "Stand up." Watching his wife's belly bulging here and there, Joe Mikang looked surprised. This was the first time he had seen such a scene. After a moment, he looked at his little wife with a worried look on his face. "Does it hurt?" "It doesn't hurt." Chu Xia smiled and shook her head. "They often look like this now, I'm used to it." "Too bad, guys, don't torment your mother anymore, otherwise, when you are born, your father will torment you." "My baby, are you someone you can bully?" Looking at someone who was chattering, Chu Xia's eyes became softer and softer. Who would have thought that the always cold and stubborn Master Ji Shui would actually have such a gentle side? How lucky she was to have his favor. "Get up." Chu Xia stretched out her hand to pull him. "Sit next to me." "What's wrong? Are you feeling uncomfortable somewhere?" Joe Mikang quickly got up, sat on top of her, and looked at her face carefully. "If you feel uncomfortable, I'll go find Mr. Chi right away." "It's not uncomfortable." Chu Xia looked at him with gentle eyes, stretched out her hands to grab his neck, and took the initiative to press her lips towards him. This time, it wasn't just a taste. His body stiffened. The teacher carefully hugged his little wife, sucking her sweetness greedily. His heart was full of happiness. This was the first time that his little wife took such initiative. Gradually, "I feel a little sour in my heart. How great would it be if I didn't have to leave? How great would it be to watch the babies being born with your own eyes? If..." Feeling the salty taste pouring into her lips, Chu Xia stroked his head distressedly. She knew very well what it meant for such a man to shed tears. "Xia!" he called softly and let go of his little wife. There was obvious discomfort in his eyes. For him, such a performance was really embarrassing. However, the emotion came so suddenly that he couldn't control it at all. This was the first time in his life that he couldn't control his emotions. It was also the only time that he didn't want to control it. "Huh," she responded softly, looking at him dimly, her eyes full of tenderness and encouragement. But he held her cheeks with both hands and greedily sucked her red lips again, like a drowning person grabbing the only straw to save his life. If it were in the past, she would have been concerned about the image he appeared in front of her elders and forced him to stop, but this time, not only did she not stop him, but she also tried her best to cooperate with him. Time seems to stand still, and both of them have only one thought in their hearts: to have each other, to truly have each other, like this, forever, until forever. All the reluctance and all the talking were left in this long kiss. When the two of them finally calmed down, Joe Mikang held his young wife in his arms and murmured, "Whether we are on a mission or not, as long as conditions permit, I will definitely come back to see you." "Yes." Chu Xia nodded. "Take good care of yourself and don't worry about me. I have so many people around me and so many people pamper me. There won't be any problems." I know." Joe Mikang kept kissing her forehead, and the deep reluctance that had just been suppressed started to burn again. In the past, he had been insisting on finding the one he liked, but even if he persisted like that, he never thought that one day his attachment to a person will be so strong. As long as he sees her, his mood is bright. As long as he sees her, no matter how big the difficulty is, it becomes insignificant. Therefore, no matter how difficult the road ahead is, he will make himself safe and return to her as soon as possible. For such a delicate little person to trust him wholeheartedly, he must allow himself to bear this trust. Returning to the bedroom after dinner, Chu Xia took the initiative to put herself into the other person's arms, thought about it, and whispered, "Be careful, and nothing will happen." "That's not okay." Joe Mikang affectionately stroked the hair beside his young wife's ear, trying hard to suppress his emotions. "I won't do anything that might hurt you, don't worry." "Well, your husband's determination is first rate. I gave you a chance, but you didn't seize it yourself." Chu Xia giggled. You can't blame me when you regret it. Am I such a worthless person? Joe McSang looked at his little wife funny. If it hadn't been for this time, I would never have spared you. Just wait for the day when you beg for mercy. I hate it. Chusia rolled her eyes at him. I started to go crazy after being serious for a while and ignored you. Haha. Joe Mikang gently rubbed her earlobe. I can be so wild and crazy in front of you, don't you feel proud? Okay, okay, I'm so proud. You are so shameless. Chusia shook her head. It's really getting thicker and thicker. By the way, when do you estimate that you can leave? So that I can have a definite idea in my mind. Count, and before I leave, can you come over again? It's probably only a matter of months. The people over there can't stand it anymore. The leaders know our family's situation and it's quite difficult. I brought it up myself. Xia, you won't blame me, right? Of course not. Xia looked at him seriously. If you say such things again, I will fall out with you. You don't know my character. Isn't this an injustice to me? Okay, I was wrong. Joe Mikang quickly stood up and knelt in front of his young wife. I'll be punished by kneeling, okay? Stop making trouble. Chusia kicked him. If the elders see it, they will punish me to death. Don't worry, you won't let them see it. Joe Mikang sat down and leaned back, letting his wife lean on him, and even if they saw it, they wouldn't scold you, they would just do it for you. Our relationship is so happy. Speaking of good relationships, Chusia suddenly thought of Zhou Zhonkong and Mei Xiaofeng, and asked, has the relationship between Xiaofeng and Lao Wu eased? No, Zhou Mikang sighed. Second aunt almost made Lao Wu angry to death. No matter how she tried to persuade her, she would just bite him to death. I have spoken. As long as Mei Xiaofeng comes back on her own, he will treat her well. If she doesn't want to come back, he won't force her. Maybe in his own eyes, this is what he calls his backbone, but he doesn't know that this is what he calls a real coward. Grandma even said to leave it alone, saying that he was not good enough for Xiaofeng, so don't let him delay others anymore. Chusia curled her lips. I also think that Lao Wu is not good enough for Xiaofeng. Although I didn't like Mei Xiaofeng at the beginning, but after getting along with her for a long time, I will find that although she is slightly strong and competitive, she is very mature. After that, it was still pretty good. Moreover, I think she has done enough. After Zhou Zhonkong did what he did, she still chose to forgive him. As long as he asked her to go back, she would go with him. You said, people have retreated to this step, and he is still there to take it. I am really convinced. Is it possible that he really has to wait until it is too late to realize his mistake? Probably so. If Xiao Lu hadn't always gone back to see Second Aunt during this period, Second Aunt might not have been able to hold on any longer. Joe Mikang smiled and scratched the tip of his little wife's head. Speaking of which, Second Aunt is worried about this. I also want to thank you. If it weren't for you, Xiaolai wouldn't be what he is now. Okay, if you want to praise yourself, just do it. You helped solve Xiaolai's problems. Why should you blame me? But to be honest, I am quite surprised by her change. In the past, I thought it would be quite difficult for her to figure it out when I saw her sulky face all day long, talking about being irritable. Besides, I thought that if you put her in the factory, she would definitely have it. I complained, but I didn't expect that I really misjudged her. Joe Mikang laughed and said, no wonder Grandma and you get along well. Grandma was also talking about this the day before yesterday. Chusia immediately smiled with crooked eyebrows. You have to talk to Grandma about this, she will definitely be happy to hear it. Okay, I'll tell Grandma about this when I get back. Joe Mikang looked at the time and said, stop talking and go to sleep. You can't have a good rest now. I'm not sleepy yet. I'll go back to sleep in half an hour. Okay. Chusia looked at him eagerly. Really, I'm very energetic now. I promise I won't delay tomorrow's things, okay? It doesn't matter if you delay tomorrow's work, I'm too tired. Jo Mikang glared at her. You thought I wronged you just now, are you wronging me now? Chu Xia smiled flatteringly. Okay, I was wrong. I just wanted to ask you how Jingxia and sister Yuan Hui were doing. The last time I went back, he always hid, for fear that I would ask him this problem. When I saw sister Yuan Hui 2 days ago, I felt that she was not in a good mood. I guess it had something to do with Jingxia's attitude, right? One is my god brother and the other is my senior sister. I always have to care about them and find ways to help them relax, don't you think? After thinking about it for a while, Jo Mixang said, Jingxia probably has premarital phobia. We chatted for a while a few days ago. He said that he had decided to marry Yuan Hui and was making preparations, but he always felt stressed. Panic, ask me how I felt when I got married to you. Chu Xia's eyes immediately lit up, then how did you answer him? Jo Mikang looked at her speechlessly. You still need to ask? You can't guess how I answered, R1152. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 1012. Second update. It's my fault that I guessed it? Tell me the answer yourself. Let me see if my guess is accurate, okay. Tell me quickly. Chu Xia shook Jo Mikang's arm ruthlessly, forcing him to the other person answers himself. Jo Mikang was unmoved. It's better if you tell me the answer and let me see how well you know me. I hate it. Chu Xia rolled his eyes at her. You still ask me about such a thing, aren't you saying that you want to let me and pamper me? Do I dare to believe you? Jo Mikang. Where is this? He. Looking at the speechless look on the other party's face, Chu Xia smiled proudly. I'm telling you clearly that you can't reason with women. Be obedient and tell me what you think. The tired look of his little wife was not annoying in Jo Mikang's eyes, but she felt particularly cute. So, he answered the other party truthfully, of course I am happy. Didn't you realize that since we confirmed the wedding date, do you grin from the corner of your mouth to your ears every day? Yes, you admitted this yourself, I didn't force you. Chu Xia said while gently stroking her belly, baby, did you hear what your father said? From now on, you have to do it for me. Mom testified. There is a black thread on Jo Mikang's end. What else is there to prove? Is it possible that he will still default on his debt? Speaking of which, he has always been true to his word. Since he admitted it personally, there is absolutely no possibility of going back on it. Moreover, the fact is this. In his opinion at the time, it was not easy to marry a young wife, and it was even more difficult to make his young wife fall in love with him. Now it seems that he is doing well, and his wife's attitude towards him has changed much faster than he expected. After breakfast the next day, the whole family went to the Gua photo studio. After Chu Xia expressed the idea of going to take pictures with Jo Mikang, Zhao Yulan. After discussing with Lin Baohe, they decided to go together with the whole family. Take a family photo by the way. Then, we went to Lao Yin's house to eat sweet potato stew, which we never forget in early summer. At 4 o'clock in the afternoon, Jo Mikang embarked on his return journey. He had to lead the team for training in the evening and could not delay it any longer. Summer. Are you and Xiaomi hiding something from us? After the car left, Zhao Yulan pulled her daughter to the room and asked in a low voice, when you talk to your mother, you are not allowed to hide it from your mother. Chu Xia blinked her big eyes. There is nothing to hide, mother, you are overthinking. You're lying at first glance. Zhao Yulan sighed. Why do we have to follow him? It's because we felt something was wrong since Xiaomi came here yesterday. Your grandpa guessed that Xiaomi might be going on a mission. Xia, tell your mother, is this the case? Also, when you give birth to the baby, will he be able to come back? Since you have already guessed it? Chusia didn't want to hide it anymore, so she thought about it and said, Mom, the specific time for the mission has not been decided yet, but it is basically certain that it will not take too long, so when the babies are born, he will some asterisk are already on a mission. But don't worry, Mom, Joe Mixang will be fine, because he is familiar with the place and has done enough homework. Only then will it be his turn again, Mother. The son-in-law is so capable and bringing glory to the country. Are you particularly proud? Zhao Yulan, who had already begun to shed tears, was so angry that she poked her daughter on the forehead. You naughty child, if you were talking to outsiders, my mother would definitely say you are proud. We are all family members, what are you pretending to be? Of course my mother knew that as a soldier, it was her duty to protect her family and country, but at this time, how could she be willing to watch her son-in-law leave? You said. Choking, Zhao Yulan couldn't continue. Mom, we can't think of the worst. Besides, if this person thinks of the worst in everything, he will be in trouble. You have to believe in him and his abilities. Just think about it, he went through so many things in the past, and he came back unscathed. This time, with the baby and our whole family caring about him, he couldn't let himself get into trouble. Of course, the injury last time was an accident, and it will definitely not happen now. By the way, there is another thing Joe Mikang asked me to talk to my mother about. Brother Ki Liang also wants to go, but Joe Mikang wants him to stay. Mom, you'd better discuss it with your uncle and aunt to see what they want. After all, Brother Ki Liang has just gotten married and Zioxian has just become pregnant. If he stays, everyone can have a backbone. This matter is quite thoughtful. When it comes to you, why don't you think carefully? Zhao Yulan pointed to her daughter's belly. You still have two people here. Mom, isn't the situation different? If he was just a small platoon leader and company commander, he would definitely stay with me. The functions are different, so there have to be trade-offs. Chu Xia smiled flatteringly. Mom is the most reasonable, so don't make things difficult for me. Who is making things difficult for you? Zhao Yulan rolled her eyes at her. Forget it, you have decided for yourselves. It's useless for me to say anything. When your grandpa guessed this yesterday, I said it was impossible. Hey. Before Zhou Mikang returned to City A, Li Aiwan received a call from Zhao Yulan. As soon as she heard that her son was going on a mission, Li Aiwan, who was making soup for her daughter-in-law, sat down on the ground. Luo Zioxian happened to be resting at home, so he hurriedly stepped forward to help her. Mom, what's wrong with you? Take a rest when you are tired. I'm not hungry. You let me drink so much nutritious food all day long. When I give birth, I will he's as fat as a pig. Li Aiwan slowly turned her head and looked at her daughter-in-law. Zioxian, what if Qi Liang goes on a mission? After being stunned for a moment, Luo Zioxian understood, and her expression changed instantly. Of course she understood the meaning of the mission. At this time, who among the people in the country didn't know about the war situation on the border, let alone her? Her hand unconsciously touched her abdomen, and her lips wriggled twice, but not a single word came out. She found that she didn't know what to say, and she said she wouldn't let her go, but there seemed to be something wrong. She said she wanted to go, but she didn't want to in her heart. As soon as Li Aiwan saw her daughter-in-law's expression, she understood what she was thinking, so she stood up and patted the dirt on her butt, and looked at her daughter-in-law seriously. Zioxian, mother knows that she cannot stop Qi Liang's progress, but in the current situation, he can't come on. You stay at home while mother goes to the station to find him. Mom. Luo Zioxian grabbed her. You'd better discuss it with dad first. If dad agrees, you can go. If dad doesn't agree. She bit her lip, then let Qi Liang do it himself. Make a choice, don't force him. I know very well what kind of temper your father is. If you ask him, he will definitely agree with Ki Liang to go on the mission. After a pause, Li Aiwan made up her mind. Xiaoxian, you can't ask your father about this matter, just leave it alone, mom will take care of it, you stay at home and wait until mom comes back to cook dinner for you. Okay. Luo Xiaoxian was already in a mess. After answering, she sat there in a daze. Looking at her daughter-in-law, Li Aiwan sighed and walked out the door. At this moment, Zhou Hanliang also needed to make a decision. This time, Zhou Mikang also suggested that he stay. It was really inappropriate to leave just after getting married, especially when the relationship with the Jun family had just eased. After having been with Zhou Mikang for these years, how could Zhou Hanliang stay? However, the division commander Tongzi issued a death order. If Jun Daodu's family did not agree, he would not take him with him. He had no choice but to go to Jun's family for advice. Of course Jun's father had no problem. As soon as his son-in-law proposed it, he immediately agreed. In his position, he had to agree whether he wanted to or not. Lan Alien looked embarrassed. Originally, she was a little dissatisfied with this son-in-law, especially when he married her daughter so early. She couldn't accept it, but her daughter made up her mind and she figured it out. I feel that as long as my daughter is happy, anything will be fine. But when it came time to face it, she found that it was too difficult to make this decision. Jun Daodu had long thought of fearing for a day, but her mood was similar to that of Lan Alien. Kuakuo didn't quite understand this. Seeing that her mother and sister were silent, she also kept silent. The room fell into an eerie silence for an instant. There is no need to explain the truth at all. Everyone's struggles are clear. Therefore, Zhou Hanliang had no choice but to sit there in silence. He couldn't tell what he felt in his heart. On one side is his good brother who has fought side by side for many years, and on the other side is his newly married wife. Even he can't tell which is more important, but he keeps telling himself in his heart that he cannot be a deserter, so this scene, no matter how difficult it is, he must face it. Jun's father sighed and looked at his mother's. Don't embarrass Han Liang. As a soldier, if he chooses to give up at this time, he may regret it for the rest of his life. If I need to rush forward, I will not do anything. Without hesitation. Zhou Hanliang was very grateful for his father-in-law's clear support for him, but he did not dare to show it at all, otherwise, his mother-in-law and his wife would feel even more uncomfortable. How is it? Do you agree or not? Not long after Zhou Mikang returned to the office, Zhou Hanliang came in. He glanced at him and asked. Agreed. Zhou Hanliang sighed and sat across from the teacher Zhangzi. Sir, what was your sister-in-law's mood like when you discussed it with her? Do you think she will be very happy? Zhou Mikang glanced at him sideways. How dare you ask such a mentally retarded question? Hey! Zhou Hanliang sighed heavily. My mother-in-law has always been silent. Later, it was Daodu who expressed his support for my decision and persuaded her to support it too. To be honest, I felt like a knife cutting through my heart at the time. I could clearly see the insincerity of her words when she persuaded my mother-in-law, but I really couldn't let myself be a coward. So, Commander, no matter what this time, I will go with you. Let's use this strength on those bastards. To be continued. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan Nuan. Chapter 1013. 1 update. Lu Lianbao has been extremely restless recently. He has written several letters to Zhao Qiwei, but there has been no response at all. He is about to go on an expedition, and his heart is really burning. There was training in the evening, and after dinner, everyone rested in the dormitory. He couldn't stay any longer, so he ran to the playground to vent a few laps. When he returned, he happened to see Li Aiwan standing there and looking around. Feeling happy, Lu Lianbao hurried over and said, "Auntie, have you eaten?" Li Aiwan, who was hesitating to find someone to help call her son out, suddenly saw an acquaintance, and her face was immediately filled with a smile. "Platoon Leader Lu, can you please help me find Qi Liang?" "Okay, just wait, I'll go right away." Lu Lianbao raised his legs and ran towards the dormitory. This may be his future mother-in-law, but he has to behave well. Zhao Qiliang was sitting there in silence when Lu Lianbao slapped him hard, making him tremble. Before he could react, the other party forcibly dragged him away. "Auntie is here to see you. She is waiting outside." "Who?" Zhao Qiliang repeated it again without hearing clearly who he was talking about. "Aunt Li." "Who is Aunt Li?" Zhao Qiliang still didn't respond. Helpless, Lu Lianbao had no choice but to speak more clearly. "Aunt Li is your mother, and it is your mother who is here to find you." Oh. Zhao Qiliang nodded suddenly, with an embarrassed look on his face. "You suddenly became Auntie and Aunt Li again. I can't go back." Lu Lianbao couldn't help but whisper, "I can't call you mother now." Not hearing clearly, Zhao Qiliang moved his head closer to him. "What?" Nothing. I just envy you that you have relatives coming to visit. My parents are far away." Lu Lianbao sighed and said nothing more. He was really sad in his heart. It has been a year and a half since he went back to his hometown to see his parents. "I don't know if I will have a chance to see them again this time." Thinking about it this way, he felt that he was such a bastard. She was just a woman with a careless mind. How could he not risk his life for such a person? If he really left, the woman wouldn't feel the slightest bit, but his parents would be sad for the rest of their lives. "Why don't you ask for leave and go home and have a look before you come back?" Really not knowing how to comfort him, Zhao Qiliang suggested. "Anyway, we won't be going on missions for the time being. Just stay home for 2 days less. The division commander will definitely agree." "No," Lu Lianbao shook his head, "if I go back at this time, what will others think? If they all go back, what will happen? Let's forget it." "My sister hasn't replied to you yet." After hesitation, Zhao Qiliang still asked. He knew what the other party was thinking, and also knew that the other party was embarrassed to open her mouth to him, so he could just take the initiative to initiate the topic. No. After hearing what Zhao Qiliang said, Lu Lianbao understood that the other party didn't know Zhao Qi's true thoughts, and he felt a little disappointed. He also wanted to get some information from Zhao Qiliang. It seemed that the score was a typo. A good girl is afraid of pestering, so you can write to her again. Also, make good military exploits. Girls all like heroes, and my sister is no exception. Zhao Qiliang patted him. "Don't worry, I'll write to my sister when the time comes. I will also speak for you." "Thank you." Lu Lianbao looked at him gratefully. "I know that my conditions are not worthy of Qi Hui, but I really like her very much. Please tell Qi Hui that if one day we both meet, I will treat her well in this life and never let her suffer any injustice." "Okay, I will definitely tell her." The two of them were talking and had already reached the outside of the dormitory. A few steps away, Li Aiwan was stretching her neck to look around. The moment she saw her son, she immediately waved happily. "Mom is here." "Mom, why are you here?" Zhao Qiliang looked at Li Aiwan with a puzzled expression. "Anyway, I'm going home tomorrow." His face suddenly changed as he said that. "Did something happen?" "Yes." Li Aiwan glanced at Lu Lianbao while responding. "Aunt, Qiliang, you guys are chatting, I'm going to take a shower first," Lu Lianbao said as he pulled off the clothes that were wet with sweat. Li Aiwan was very satisfied with Lu Lianbao's common sense, and her smile softened unconsciously. "Lu Platoon Leader, I'm sorry to bother you." When Xiaoliang goes back tomorrow, you can go there together, and Auntie will make dumplings for you to eat. Okay, thank you, Auntie Lulianbao responded and ran away quickly, feeling extremely happy. This kid, except for his shallow education, is quite good. Seeing the other party's figure disappear, Li Aiwan couldn't help but sigh, and then got to the point. I heard that you are about to go on a mission, what do you think of? Mom, who did you listen to? As soon as the words came out of his mouth, Zhao Qiliang felt that what he was asking was really childish. His brother-in-law is the teacher, so why should he ask? Your sister-in-law called me and told me as expected. Li Aiwan's answer confirmed Zhao Qiliang's idea. Mom, I have to go. Zhao Qiliang looked at Li Aiwan seriously. I am a soldier. At this time, there is absolutely no room for retreat. Otherwise, I will look down on myself for the rest of my life. I know that you are worried that something unexpected will happen to me. Don't worry, I will protect myself. I will come back to be filial to my parents and protect Xiaoxing and the unborn baby. Mom, don't scare yourself with your wild thoughts. I participated in it last time. The scene is really not as scary as you think. Mainly, our division commander is so clever. If you follow him, it will be absolutely safe. No matter how safe it is still a war. Guns and guns don't have eyes, so they can't see you and not run towards you. Qiliang, mother knows that it is not recommended for newly married soldiers to participate in missions. Therefore, mom's request is not selfish. If you were not married, mom would really not say anything. But now, instead of thinking about others, we have to think about Xiaoxing and our children. During this period of pregnancy, the mood of the pregnant woman is so important. If you just leave like this, Xiaoxing will worry about this and that all day long, which will not be good for the child. You don't want your children to have problems in the future, right? Besides, it's not like missing one of you will affect the entire mission. To put it bluntly, there is no difference at all if there is one more of you and one of you less. For the sake of our family, you just have to listen to your mother for once, okay? Mom, if every soldier's family thinks like this, will there be anyone on the mission? Zhao Qiliang looked at Li Aiwan seriously. Don't force me, there is really no discussion about this matter. Otherwise, you can ask me whatever you want, but this is really not possible. You don't want my children to be ashamed of me, right? You kid, how come you can't get enough of it? Li Aiwan looked at him bitterly. If I knew you were like this, my mother should have stopped Xiaoxing from marrying you. Mother. Zhao Qiliang looked at his mother with a speechless expression. He really didn't know what to say. Who was the person who was so worried that he didn't want to eat or drink because he didn't get married? Li Aiwan waved her hand. Forget it, I won't nag you anymore. I'll go find your teacher and ask him to remove you from the quota. Mom, if you do this, I will hate you forever. Zhao Qiliang looked at her steadily. Do you want your son to live like a zombie all his life, or do you want him to be a man who stands upright? Why are you so stubborn, kid? Li Aiwan knew her son's temper, so she stood there in a dilemma. Logically, she understood that she shouldn't stop her son, but emotionally, she couldn't do it. Not to mention anything else, she couldn't do it just for her daughter-in-law and her unborn baby. Yes, she also believed what her son said. It might not be a problem, but what if something happened? Just because it was okay last time doesn't mean it will be okay this time. Moreover, she didn't know last time, otherwise, she would probably have stopped him. Of course, she also understood that if everyone thought like her, what else would the soldiers do? However, she still couldn't let herself have such a high consciousness. She only had one son. If she had known that this day would come, she would not have let her son become a soldier. The mother and son stood there in a stalemate, and the soldiers who came in and out would take a curious look at them. In the end, Li Aiwan gave in. Let's not talk about the results now. You and your father and grandparents will discuss it before we make a decision, okay? After thinking about it, Zhao Qiliang nodded. Okay, he believed that his father and grandfather would definitely support him, and would eventually help him convince his mother and grandmother. Of course, Zhou Mikang's doing this also made him feel warm in his heart. Although it caused him a little trouble, it allowed the elders in the family to be mentally prepared in advance so that they would not be angry with him again when they found out later. And frightened. Mom, you're going to call Dad later, right? Li Aiwan nodded. Well, ask your father and your sister to come over tomorrow, and we will discuss it as a family. Then shall I ask Lu Lianbao to go with me tomorrow? Go. Li Aiwan sighed. It's not like the child doesn't know what he thinks about Chi Hui. He compares his own thoughts to people's hearts. If his parents knew about it, they would be no less worried than me. We can't help him with anything else, so let your sister give him some comfort. Originally, your sister promised to visit him everywhere after a year, but when she went back, there was no news at all. How can you tell him that in his heart? Are you safe? Could it be that after my sister goes back, the article will always be published, so she has to stay away from platoon leader Lu first? After saying that, Zhao Qiliang shook his head again. My sister is just too soft-hearted. How can this happen? How to comfort her in this way? What if I pass the exam and have to be with her? Li Aiwan glared at him. Don't worry about these things now, sort out your own affairs first, and then talk about what is going on with your sister. Won't you know tomorrow? R 1152. First marriage then love. Mr. Mayor, please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1014. Updated today. Knowing that her sister-in-law must be worried about her own affairs, Li Aiwan left her son and went straight to Zhou Mikang's office. When she lived in the base guest house before, she and her husband had gone there, so now she was familiar with the way to find him. Past. Zhou Hanliang was still in Zhou Mikang's office. When he saw Li Aiwan, he stood up with a smile. Auntie, when did you come here? Come in and sit down. As he spoke, he poured a glass of water and placed it on the coffee table, gesturing for the other party to sit down. Zhou Mikang had also stood up from his desk. After saying hello, he sat directly opposite Li Aiwan. You are here for Qiliang's matter, right? How was the discussion? Mr. Xiaozhou, thank you in advance for being willing to reveal this matter to me in advance. Li Aiwan smiled sheepishly. I'm a bit low on consciousness and still don't want him to go, but he insists on going. There's nothing he can do about it? I had to make a compromise and ask his father and Chi Hui to come over tomorrow, and the whole family must discuss it, and his grandparents' opinions must be listened to. Looking at the time, Zhou Mikang pointed to the phone on the table. Auntie, please go over and make a call first, and we'll talk later. After saying a few polite words, Li Aiwan got up and went to the desk to make a phone call. After thinking about it, she decided to call Zhao Yulan first and asked her to tell Mr. Zhao and Mrs. Zhao about the matter by the way, so that they could discuss it and participate tomorrow. Vote. Then, she called the village phone number, and her daughter answered the call. She said her father had gone to town and had not come back yet, so she called the town again. As expected, Zhao Yushan got angry when he heard what she said. Is this kind of thing easy to stop? My son is a soldier, let alone getting married. Even if his father died, he would go to the battlefield when he should. Glancing at Zhou Mixang and Zhou Hanliang, she saw that both of them had their backs to her and were motionless. After a slight hesitation, she still said what she was thinking. I don't have as high a consciousness as you. Anyway, I don't think it's right for him to leave at this time. He is responsible and the country can still function without him, but what will happen if his wife and children leave him? If everyone is as enlightened as you, how can the country be prosperous and strong? How can it develop? How can you live such a stable life now? I don't have to go through it. My opinion is to firmly support my son's decision. After saying that, Zhao Yushan put down the phone. Listening to the beep coming from the phone, Li Aiwan turned pale with anger. After all, she was discussing it, and she was doing it in front of her nephew and son-in-law. If they don't give her face, how will she behave in front of them in the future? After thinking about it, she called again, and the person who answered the phone was her brother-in-law Zhang Qiuqing. Sister-in-law. Zhang Qiuqing coughed unnaturally and continued, "Brother is out. Don't worry. I'll advise him and ask him to get back to you later. Please leave me your phone number and I'll wait for 10 minutes, okay?" Hey. Li Aiwan let out a long sigh and said, "National Day, I know, you must also think that my consciousness is too low, but I know very well what kind of life you and Bao's father and mother are living now. I really don't miss our family. It also became like that. Please tell your elder brother, I have already told Kiwi to come with her father tomorrow. He also knows that Battalion Commander Lu has a crush on Kiwi. If he doesn't want the other parents to be sad, don't go with her." I reluctantly came. Regardless of whether Ki Liang goes or not, I hope that our family will sit together and have a good discussion, not only for ourselves, but also for Xiaoxian. That child is willing to do anything for Ki Liang. We cannot ignore that child's thoughts. Of course, she is more enlightened than me. She is anxious to marry Ki Liang just to make us feel at ease. But the more this happens, the more uneasy I feel. If I really haven't gotten married, I haven't been so worried. We can't harm other people's daughters. On National Day, I feel a little confused in my heart and a little confused in what I say. You see what I mean? I understand. Zhang Qiuqing said quickly. Sister-in-law, don't worry. I told my elder brother all this. He was just angry about it. In fact, the main reason why he went out in such a hurry was because he was worried and didn't want me to see it. I am a father just like him, so how can I not understand his thoughts? Look at his tough words, but in his heart, he is the same as you, but... With a sigh, he continued, Sister-in-law, please understand him better, don't be angry, and don't get angry in a hurry. I'll persuade him later and you can talk again, okay? Okay, then I'll give you the phone number. Just as Li Aiwan was about to turn around and ask Zhou Mikang what the phone number was, the other party had already handed over a note, and she quickly read it out. After hanging up the phone, she looked at Zhou Mikang and Zhou Hanliang with even more uncomfortable expressions. She felt that her consciousness was low and she was embarrassed. If she hadn't been worried about her son, she really wouldn't be able to stay here any longer. Zhou Mikang called her over to sit down and said, Auntie, we all understand your thoughts, including my mother, who has the same thoughts as you. It's just that after so many years, she has adapted to it, so she doesn't advise me. When I first joined the army, my mother was very worried and angry. So, seeing you like this today, I really feel very kind to you. Mr. Xiaozhou. Li Aiwan smiled coquettishly, my consciousness cannot be compared with that of my sister-in-law, and Ki Liang cannot be compared with what you did back then. Auntie. Zhou Mikang interrupted her, you still treat me as an outsider. Didn't you follow your parents in calling me Xiaomi before? Now, you are calling me Mr. Zhou again. Doesn't it look like you have a different identity? As for my mother and you, we are both mothers and have the same ideas. There is no comparison. I also grew up at the age of Ki Liang. You can't underestimate him. He may not develop in the future. I'm bad. Xiaozhou, Xiaomi, you are really good at comforting people. Li Aiwan smiled and shook her head, I think my son is quite powerful, but to say that he will develop no worse than you in the future, I mean nothing. Will believe it? I am not being polite, nor am I looking down on my son. You see, you are not much older than him, but you have become a teacher now. Even if he is trying his best to catch up with you, he will not be able to catch up with you. Moreover, you can reach this point at your age, how much hardship you have suffered, and how much you have suffered. I can guess it without anyone telling me. Even if Ki Liang participates in this mission, it will not be as good as yours back then. There are quite a few. The subtext of Li Aiwan's words is, don't lie to me. Zhou Hanliang was almost hurt from holding back his laughter there. Mr. Zindao, even if you want to comfort others, you can't use yourself as an example. Anyway, you can use me as an example? With your age and your development, can you find anyone else in China? Zhou Mikang also realized that his persuasion seemed to be a bit too much, so he coughed to cover up, Auntie, you understand what I mean. Anyway, Ki Liang is a promising person. Yes, yes. Li Aiwan's expression also relaxed. She has always been in awe of this nephew and son-in-law. He can achieve this at such a young age. Is that something ordinary mortals can compare to? Because of this, even if her sister-in-law and her husband praised the Zhou family to the sky, and even if she saw with her own eyes how good the Zhou family was to her sister-in-law's family, she still had doubts in her heart, fearing that the Zhao family's family background would affect Chu Xia's relationship with the Zhou family status. But at this moment, she suddenly felt that all her and her husband's worries were useless. Some time ago, the Zhou family had been insisting that they live in the Zhou family for as long as they wanted. It was definitely not a polite statement, but what she and her husband did was too petty. If she experiences it again, she will definitely not be so pretentious. Just as she was thinking about it, the phone rang. She quickly got up and ran over to pick it up. I'll go there tomorrow and buy tickets later. I called Chi Hui just now and asked her to pack her things. I also informed Lao Er by the way the couple, bought tickets for them and asked them to go there with me, while you watch and organize a house at home for them to live in. Li Aiwan, who was quite happy at first, instantly sank when she heard that the second brother and his wife were coming over. Although Lin Xiahua was different from before, who knew whether it was true or just pretending. She herself didn't care, but her daughter-in-law was pregnant. What if Lin Xiahua made a fuss? The words of rejection came to her lips and she swallowed them back. Even if they have been married for so many years, they still have to be taboo about some things. After all, they are her husband's younger brothers and sisters. If she stops her, her husband will probably be unhappy. Moreover, if her husband knew that she made the call from her nephew and son-in-law, and that her nephew and son-in-law and political commissar Zhou were guarding her, he would be even more angry. After hanging up the phone, Li Aiwan looked a little sad. Uncle still doesn't agree, Zhou Mikang looked at her doubtfully and asked. He agreed. Li Aiwan forced a smile, it's the second couple who want to come over. It's not that I don't want them to come over, I'm worried about Xiaoxing's mood. Zhou Mikang understood immediately. He had also dealt with his second uncle and his wife. He knew very well who they were before. As for whether they had really changed or faked it now, who knew? I'll go there tomorrow. After thinking about it, Zhou Mikang said, Chu Xia is not here, so I have to take part in family affairs for her. Auntie won't think I'm nosy, right? No, of course not. Li Aiwan looked at him with surprise. Xiaomi, really, thank you so much. In the evening, when Zhou Mikang called Chu Xia good night, he told his young wife that Zhao Yushan and Zhao Kiwi were coming to City A and bringing Zhao Yushui and his wife with them. Why take them there? Sure enough, the young wife's first reaction was the same as that of her eldest aunt. She was absolutely repulsive to the arrival of her second uncle's family, R1152. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1015. The two chapters come together. After hanging up Zhou Mikang's phone, Chu Xia went to Zhao Yulan and Lin Baohe's room. When the couple saw their daughter, they stood up together, with a hint of worry in their eyes. What happened? Zhao Yulan asked. Road. Seeing his mother looking at her belly while asking, Chu Xia hurriedly said, Mom, when my uncle and sister Kiwi go to Sidia tomorrow, my second uncle and his family will also go. Otherwise, my father and mother will accompany grandma and grandpa there. See. I'm here with Aunt Jean taking care of me, so I'm sure everything will be fine. Knowing that her daughter was worried that her second brother and sister-in-law might hurt Luo Xiaoxian if they made trouble, Zhao Yulan smiled and said, Don't worry, your second aunt is not what she used to be. Mom promises you that nothing will happen to her. I know she is different from before, but what if? Chu Xia looked at Zhao Yulan with a worried look. Mom, it's better to be safe. Anyway, it only takes 2 days to come and go. Grandpa Dagong happened to Grandma Dagong still lives there, so Mom and Dad can also visit them. You kid. Zhao Yulan sighed and looked at her husband. What do you think? After thinking for a while, Lin Baohe said, Xia is right. Gang Shun and Shaxian can safely leave their children to their eldest brother and sister-in-law's family. If something happens, how can they deal with them? Zhao Yulan responded and said, Then I will discuss it with my parents tomorrow morning and see what they want. After all, brother Qi Liang is grandma and grandpa's only grandson. Chu Xia looked at her parents seriously. Even if the second uncle and second aunt don't go, they should be allowed to go back to City A to discuss it with the uncle's family. Lin Baohe nodded in approval. Xia is right, your grandma and grandpa must have wanted to go back and discuss it together. Then he looked at his wife. Yulan, I think this is the deal, whether my parents agree or not, take them all back. Zhao Yulan certainly understands the reason why her husband said this. Even if her parents want to go back, they will definitely reject their proposal. After all, their daughter is already so old. Even if they know that someone will take care of her and there will be no problem, the old couple will not feel relieved. Indeed, the grandson means something different to them, but their feelings for their granddaughter are definitely no less than their feelings for their grandson. The matter was settled like that. Early the next morning, when Zhao Yulan talked to the old couple refused as expected, but the look in their eyes clearly meant that they wanted to go. Therefore, Zhao Yulan and Lin Baohe directly rejected the old couple's opinions and invited Mr. Qi, MRSG and Mr. Wan's sister-in-law Yin over. Father, mother, what else are you worried about? Zhao Yulan looked at them. The old couple asked. Go ahead, nothing will happen to you as long as I'm here, Mr. Qi said as he glanced at Mr. Zhao. You should move more now so that you have less to worry about and it will be helpful for your body's recovery benefit. Now that the experts have said so, the old couple no longer persisted. When they left, they gave Chu Xia a lot of advice. Chu Xia was moved and funny. In their eyes, she was still the one who knew nothing. A child who doesn't even understand. Facts have proved that everyone's worries about Lin Xiahua are unnecessary. As for her now, let alone treating her well, even if she treats her badly, she will not take the initiative to make trouble. After going through one scene after another, she learned the lesson again and again without any brainstorming. Therefore, when she heard Zhao Yushan said that he would take them to Sidia together, she said a lot of words of gratitude and stayed overnight. The thick stack of single cakes was meant to be eaten on the road, leaving some for the sister-in-law and nephews and nieces to eat, and the rest to be given to my daughter. When they arrived at City A, they exchanged some caring greetings and left the single cake with Li Aiwan and Luo Xiaoxian. Lin Xiahua and Zhao Yushui hurried to their daughter's house. It's strange to say, knowing that my daughter's child is not her biological child. But they were close to her from the bottom of their hearts and felt that he should be their grandson, no different from their own. They sent wedding eggs and noodles. Although their daughter didn't come home, they didn't bother with these things. The behavior of Zhao Yushui and his wife made Li Aiwan, who was full of vigilance, a little embarrassed. When the two left, they took the initiative to pack a bag of nutritional supplements and take them with them. On the way, Lin Xiaohua carefully flipped through the bag packed by Li Aiwan, and Zhao Yushui glared at her, "Look at how stingy you are. My sister-in-law packed it for my daughter. What are you looking at? Let me see what they are all about. I have no intention of taking advantage of my daughter." As she said this, Lin Xiaohua tied the bag tightly and smiled at her husband. "Let's take a look now. Sister-in-law is actually quite nice, huh? You were blinded by your own lard all those years. How could you see the good in others?" Zhao Yushui sighed. "Anyway, we were both not good before. We are already at this age, but we can't do it anymore. Am I right?" "That's for sure." Lin Xiaohua nodded repeatedly. "After all these things, I know who is the best to me. If I still cheat, I will be worse than a pig or a dog. Don't worry, even if you don't tell me, I will treat my father, mother, brother, sister-in-law, and several younger sisters and brother-in-law well in the future." "Yeah," Zhao Yushui responded, turning his head towards the car window and saying no more. While the couple was talking, people in the car kept looking over. In this day and age, it is still very eye-catching to go out carrying so many gifts. Lin Xiaohua hugged her pocket tighter. Hillbilly, the middle-aged woman sitting next to the two of them, curled her lips and muttered. Zhao Yushui looked at his wife reflexively, her eyes full of worry. As a result, Lin Xiaohua didn't even look at the woman, but just loosened the pocket in her hand slightly. Zhao Yushui quietly breathed a sigh of relief. His wife was indeed different from the past. If it had been before, his wife would have jumped up and pointed at the other person's nose and started scolding him. He knew that his character was a bit useless, but it was better to do less than to do more, especially since the eldest brother brought the couple here. If anything really happened, he would have to trouble the eldest brother. But the eldest brother doesn't know anyone here. When the time comes, he will inevitably cause trouble to the younger sister. He has already caused a lot of trouble to the younger sister, and he really doesn't want to drag her down anymore. When they got off the bus at the station, as soon as the couple got up, the woman next to them got off before them, and ended up in the same place as them. When standing at the door of Liu's house, the woman turned back and looked at the two of them with a frown. "Who are you looking for?" "Looking for my daughter," Lin Xiaohua said as she reached out and knocked on the door. The woman looked astonished. "Are you the parents of Zhen Qiang's wife?" "Yeah." Lin Xiaohua had no choice but to respond, as she couldn't figure out where the other party was coming from. Just at this moment, the door of the room opened, and Lu Zhenfen's face appeared at the door. When he saw the woman in front of him, he immediately put on a smile. "Auntie, why are you here?" The woman reached out and rubbed Lu Zhenfen's head. "Fen'er, it sounds like you don't welcome my aunt over. How is it possible? I look forward to my aunt's arrival every day. Auntie, come in quickly. My mother will be very happy to see you," Lu Zhenfen said as he stepped aside to let the woman in. "Aren't you looking at us?" Lin Xiaohua glanced at her husband and asked with some uncertainty. "Hey," with a heavy sigh, Zhao Yushui raised his foot and walked in. How could such two big living people not be able to get in? How blind is that? Let's make it clear, they don't want to see them. Zhao Qian was squatting in the toilet washing clothes. When she heard the voice, she stood up and beat her feet. When she turned her head, she happened to see Zhao Yushui and Lin Xiaohua entering the door, so she walked out to greet them. "Dad, Mother, why are you here? Your uncle came here because he had something to do, so he brought us here with him." Lin Xiaohua looked at her daughter distressedly. "You need to rest more now. If the root cause of the disease is found, you will suffer in the future." "Humph," Lu Zhenfen snorted coldly and looked at Lin Xiaohua with a half-smile. "Auntie, what you said is that our family doesn't know about our own affairs. Do we need to pretend like this?" "What are you talking about, Lin Xiaohua? who had been holding back her anger, her voice became louder unconsciously. Kian suffered such a big loss earlier, was she just pretending? Why are you kids so irritating when you talk? Don't forget that you are also a girl and you will have to experience these things one day. When the time comes, if you think about what you said today, you will definitely regret it. You are such a shameless woman. Whose family is this, and you are here to act wild? The woman Lu Jianfen called her and looked at Liu's mother. Sister, she bullied your daughter, and you didn't react at all. Kian, take your parents to see the child. Glancing at the clock on the wall, Liu's mother said, Zhenqiang will be back soon, hurry up and make lunch. What does this mean? Let your parents take a look at the child and leave immediately. Zhao Qian looked at her mother-in-law in disbelief. How could she lower herself so low in exchange for a lunch left by her parents at Liu's house? What's that look in your eyes? Mother Lu smiled exaggeratedly, as if she had just seen Zhao Yishui and Lin Ziahua. My in-laws mother, the chaos in our house makes you laugh. Now our family is different from the past. We are so strong that we have to work hard to earn money to support the family. At this age, I can't do anything and I have to drag him down. Zhenfen is a sensible person, so she goes to help support the family with small jobs, and my sister. She pointed to the woman beside her, she also helps us from time to time. While she was talking, the woman had already carried the things that Zhao Yishui, Lin Ziahua had brought to Liu's mother's house. When she came out, she looked at Zhao Qian with an arrogant expression. Daughter-in-law Zhenqiang, it's not like you don't know what's going on at home. From now on, just don't let these random people come to your home. Not only will your life be difficult, but you'll also make your neighbors laugh. Auntie, they are my parents, not random people. Zhao Qian argued and looked at her mother-in-law. Mom, I took my parents back to our house. Well, don't forget to make lunch later. Zhenqiang's job now is not as good as before, and our whole family is pointing at him, Mother Lu said as she glanced at Zhao Yishui and Lin Ziahua coldly. Clenching her fists hard, she managed to hold back the anger that was about to erupt. As her daughter entered the house, Lin Ziahua asked solemnly, Qian, when we came here last time, how did your mother-in-law and your sister-in-law treat you? Okay, what's going on this time? Nothing. Zhao Qian smiled at Lin Ziahua and changed the subject. Mom, what happened to uncle? Does it matter? I don't know. Lin Ziahua shook her head. Ask your uncle, he won't tell you. Your father and I knew what was going on and didn't say anything more. We came here after only a few words in City A. It's not that we don't want to care about your uncle. Sighing, Zhao Yishui said, many of the things our family has done in the past are too heart-wrenching. If your uncle doesn't tell you, of course we can't help with that matter. We can't help. Come on, don't cause trouble for others. The eldest brother just got married, what could it be? Zhao Qian frowned. Why don't I go there with my parents in the afternoon? No matter what, we can't pretend not to know that we can't help, right? Over here. Lin Ziahua nodded her head. Looking at your mother-in-law, are you allowed to go out? Wow wow wow. Before Zhao Qian could say anything, the little guy who was sleeping on the bed woke up, opened his mouth and howled at the top of his lungs. Zhao Qian quickly picked up the child and patted it gently. The door was pushed open and Lu Jianfen came in with a face on her face. Give me the baby, Mom is making milk powder over there. I'll do it. Zhao Qian smiled apologetically at Zhao Yishui and Lin Ziahua. Father, Mother, you sit down and wait for me for a while. Give Mommy the little baby to hold, and you go get the bottle, Lin Ziahua said as she reached out to pick up the little guy and coaxed her softly. If the baby doesn't cry, Grandma will hold the baby. My dear, why am I bothering you with this matter? Mother Lu walked in with a smile, and ran towards Xiaobao with her hand outstretched. For fear of hurting the child, Lin Ziahua quickly let go of her hand. Mom, I'll be back soon. Zhao Qian glanced at his mother pleadingly, followed her mother-in-law out of the door quickly, and closed the door smoothly. What do they want to do? Lin Xiahua frowned and looked at her husband. The last time we came here, they were still kind to us and said they would not let Qian suffer. How come it's only been a few days and it's like this, already? You said that for no other reason than the Zhou family's background. How dare they treat Qian like this? Yu Shui, it's not that I can't bear it, it's that they went too far. Anyway, whether you like it or not, I can't swallow this breath anymore. I will have to talk to Chu Xia's son-in-law when I see him later. I don't believe that Lu will not regret it then. Don't mess around. Zhao Yushui glared at his wife and warned, my daughter has finally settled down, but we can't mess with her anymore. I'll ask her what's going on later. Our daughter has basically become a doormat now. If you ask her, she won't tell you. Just now she was covering up for the Lu family by acting so unclearly. Now they dare to do this when we are here. If we are not here, what will happen? How to treat Qian? Yu Shui, I know I was not good in the past, but you have also seen what happened this time. It is not that I am looking for trouble, nor is it that I am unreasonable, right? My daughter is the flesh that has fallen from my body. How can I not feel sad when I see her suffering? In the past, I was kind to her and wanted to take advantage of her. Now, I really don't have that idea. I just want my daughter to live a good life. Zhao Yushui remained silent. He admitted that what his wife said made sense. His daughter's current personality had completely changed from before, and her patience was comparable to that of her younger sister. If he just watched his daughter suffer here and didn't care, he would really not be able to get over this hurdle. Just as he was hesitating, the loud crying of children and the sharp scolding of women came from outside. The one who was scolded was naturally their daughter. Without thinking, Zhao Yushui pushed the door open and went out. Lin Xiahua's eyes were filled with joy and she hurriedly followed. She knew her husband's character very well. He looked extremely honest, but if he really aroused his anger, he would be a Jedi. I won't give in. The mother and daughter of the Lu family dared to blatantly bully their daughter. She wanted to see how they would end up. Are you blind or are you speechless? Can such a small child be as hot as you? If you want to, stay here. If you don't, just get out. Don't harm my grandson all day long. Do you think I don't know your thoughts? Mrs. Lu pointed at Zhao Qian arrogantly, don't you just want to kill Xiaobao so that you can pick up a child who has nothing to do with the Lu family? Why do you think your heart is poisonous? Zhao Qian kept mumbling and saying sorry. Zhao Yushui became angry when he saw it. He came to his daughter in a few steps and pushed her, look up. Zhao Qian looked up at her father reflexively. Zhao Yushui frowned tightly, tell me, Dad, what did your mother-in-law mean just now? If you think I am your biological father, don't hide it. Father, Mother, are you here? Auntie, are you here too? At this moment, Lu Zhenqiang came back, greeted Zhao Yushui and Lin Xiahua with a smile, and then greeted the middle-aged woman standing next to his mother. Look at the dirt on your body. Mother Lu hurriedly stepped forward and patted the dust on her son's shoulders, still sighing, you said you haven't suffered like this in many years, yet you have worked so hard for this family. Why? Mom, my job is very good now, I'm very happy. Sensing something amiss in the atmosphere at home, Lu Zhenqiang quickly looked at Zhao Yushui, Lin Xiahua and Zinni. Father, Mother, if I had known you were coming, I would have asked for leave to stay with you at home. Qian has been thinking about you these days. I was also thinking that when the child is older next month, I would accompany her back to my hometown to see your two elders. Unexpectedly, my second elder came here right now. Qian, answer what I just said. Zhao Yushui ignored Lu Zhenqiang and stared at his daughter. I still say what I said, treat me as your biological father, don't lie to me. Dad, Look at how angry you are. Lu Zhenqiang quickly stepped forward and took Zhao Yushui's arm towards the sofa. Dad, let's sit down and talk. Then he turned back to greet Lin Xiahua. Mom, come and sit too. Zhenqiang, can you have some backbone? Lu Zhenqiang's aunt Chu Meija stepped forward and stared at her nephew hatefully. A hen that can't lay eggs deserves to be protected like this by you. Say it again. Lin Xiahua turned to look at her. Her eyes were red. Why did her daughter become a hen that couldn't lay eggs? How dare this woman say this? Does she really think that she, Lin Xiahua, grew up a vegetarian? Tell me again what's wrong. Chu Meija snorted coldly. Your daughter is just a hen that doesn't lay eggs. If outsiders don't know how this child came about, don't we ourselves know? My sister and my nephew are confused and want to hide it like this for a lifetime, but I can't swallow this breath. Why should we let our whole family take the blame for your daughter? Who doesn't want to have a child of their own? Why would you deprive Zhenqiang of this right? Who is to blame for my daughter's inability to have children? Lin Xiahua took a few steps to stand in front of her, but she was not as tall as her, so it felt quite funny. Chu Meija didn't take Lin Xiahua seriously at all. She laughed and looked at Liu's mother. Sister, you have the nerve to bring a person of such caliber to be your in-laws. Okay, I won't say more. Any more words will be hatred. I'm obviously doing it for your own good, but if you don't accept my favor, I'll go back first, and give me a reply after you think about it. After saying that, he turned around and walked out. Lu Zhenfen hurriedly caught up. Auntie, I'll see you off. Qian, Zhao Yushui shouted, your father is asking you, are you a dead person? Glancing at Lu Zhenqiang and then at the child in her arms, Zhao Qian could no longer control the tears she had been holding back. Father, mother, don't ask, I chose this day by myself. I will accept the good or the bad, I can't go back and embarrass you anymore. Lu Zhenqiang, if you are a man, please speak clearly. Zhao Yushui looked at his son-in-law. We felt something was wrong as soon as we walked in today. We did not force this marriage on you. Now, what are you doing to my daughter? Charter. The smile on his face faded little by little, and Lu Zhenqiang looked at his mother. Mom, how did you promise me? Didn't I agree that my wife will be Qian for the rest of my life, and you are not allowed to treat her badly again? Lu Ma turned her head to the side. Just when Lu Zhenfen came back, Lu Zhenqiang frowned and looked at her again. You too, didn't you promise not to cause trouble to your sister-in-law again? What did you do? Lu Zhenfen shrank his neck and said nothing. Father, mother, don't worry. Our whole family will treat Qian well in the future. I promise you, the second elder, that I will never marry any woman except her in this life. I also admit another thing to you, that is, Xiaobao is my biological son. In fact, this is also an accident. I promise that Xiaobao's mother will not affect our lives. Qian and I will definitely you will become happier and happier. What did you say? Listening to what Luo Xiaoqiang said on the other end of the phone, Chu Xia was so shocked that she almost threw the phone to the ground. You said Xiaobao is Lu Zhenqiang's biological son. Yes, Luo Xiaoqiang sighed. My parents, your parents, and your Mr. Zhou are discussing this matter outside. To be honest, I didn't even expect that Lu Zhenqiang would actually engage in such a secret crossing of Chen Kang. Do you think this man is too insidious? R1152. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1016. First update arrived. If you like to play and watch, come here. In early summer, I felt that my brain was a little insufficient. If calculated according to time, when cousin Zhao Qian was pregnant, Lu Zhenqiang was still having sex with another woman? But the problem is that during that time Lu Zhenqiang had not completely turned over and was obsessed with Zhao Qian. How could he find the energy to get along with another woman? Moreover, if there is such a woman, and the other person is pregnant with his child, why would he still get together with Zhong Hongying? Or maybe he didn't like the other woman, so he chose Zhong Hongying, whom he liked more after he became rich. When she asked her questions, Luo Xiaoqian could not give her a satisfactory answer. She said that she only listened to part of it and hurriedly called to report the news. She would give the details later. Hanging up the phone helplessly, Chu Xia shook her head. This guy was still so impatient. It was better not to say anything than to hang her here. What's wrong? Sister-in-law Yin saw Chu Xia sitting there looking a little dazed, so she stepped forward and looked her over. Are you feeling uncomfortable or something? Do you want me to call Mr. Qi? I'm fine. Chu Xia quickly grabbed her. I'm just hanging here with Luo Xiaoqian and I'm worried. Then she told him about Lu Zhenqiang's secret escape from Chenkang, and expressed her doubts. This kind of thing. Sighing, sister-in-law Yin said helplessly, there's nothing surprising. A woman who is good with Lu Zhenqiang may be with him because of objective needs. As for why Lu Zhenqiang didn't marry her, the reason is not difficult to guess. How could he really value a woman whom he objectively needs to be with? Yes or no? Is this a way to exchange for objective needs? Chu Xia looked incredulous, but the problem is, this is giving birth, not a chicken laying an egg. Just lie down in the nest for a while. How can others find out? What if it doesn't work? Didn't that period of time happen to be when Lu Zhenqiang was promoted and made a fortune? It was not difficult to raise a person. The cost was probably to make the big family well-fed and clothed. Even today, Lu Zhenqiang is probably in charge of the food, clothing, housing, and transportation of that family, or in other words, he is exposing the facts. It was because Lu Zhenqiang could not meet their conditions. After thinking about it for a while, Chu Xia also felt that what sister-in-law Yin said made sense, so she sighed, that's probably what happened. But if this is really the case, Lu Zhenqiang is too much of a toy. If you ask me, it would be better for Sister Qian to break up with this kind of person and find someone who is really willing to live a good life with her. It's impossible to trust this kind of person. Women are prone to fooling around. Zhao Qian used to have a very fierce personality, but now he has turned into this. What does it mean? Sister-in-law Yin shook her head. The longer a man and a woman are together, the easier it is to separate. Women, the longer you stay with a man, the harder it is to break up, not absolutely, but mostly like this. Yes. Chu Xia nodded. You see, I am an example. I didn't like Zhou Mikang in the past, but now, I am more and more pleased with him. Sister-in-law Yin was confused when she heard this. Okay, don't include yourself in this. Just what Mr. Zhou did to you. As long as your heart is not made of stone, you should have covered it up a long time ago. Early summer. Sister-in-law Yin rubbed Chu Xia's head in a funny way and continued, however, considering the character of Lu Zhenqiang's family, it is really not a good choice for your cousin to marry into his family. Lu Zhenqiang is willing to marry your cousin because he is forced by the situation. For the time being, he does not dare to act rashly, but as time goes by, he really dare not say it. After all, it is a fact that your cousin cannot have children, and he is the only child in their family. You should not be willing to just have one child. Otherwise, his mother and his sister can't do that to your cousin. With the two of them beating the drum, it's only a matter of time before Lu Zhenqiang's mind starts to wander. Chu Xia curled her lips. Even if he wants to, he can't have a baby anymore. It doesn't matter who he chooses for this matter. Zhao Qian's personality has changed so much now, so she is more than suitable for him. His mother and his sister are still it's noisy. If it really breaks up, I wonder who would go to his house and follow them like this. Lu Zhenqiang can't give birth, Sister-in-law Yin looked at Chu Xia in surprise. Are you sure about this? Yes, Chu Xia nodded. It is absolutely true that she was injured by Zhong Hongying. After thinking about it, sister-in-law Yin said, I guess his mother and his sister don't know, otherwise, the two of them wouldn't be so excited about it anymore. After all, they also know the benefits of marrying Zhao Qian. That's right, Chu Xia was stunned and realized that Lu Zhenqiang was absolutely embarrassed to tell his mother and sister about this matter. Then, the reason why the two women went crazy was explained. In this day and age, some people still have a paranoid obsession with this kind of thing. Speaking of which, Zhao Qian's life was quite bitter. However, Zhao Qian was too narcissistic in the past, and now she seems to have too low self-esteem. Although there was pressure from the Zhou family for Lu Zhenqiang to marry Zhao Qian, looking at the causes and consequences, it was definitely a matter of your own free will. The Lu family had no right to make such a move. Don't be angry about this kind of thing, it's not worth it. Sister-in-law Yin patted Chu Xia and comforted her, your cousin chose this path by herself. You can't blame anyone. Yes, Chu Xia took a long breath. If she wanted to blame anyone, she could only blame herself. If she hadn't done that back then, she wouldn't be living like this now. However, I still felt a little uncomfortable when I heard that she was bullied so much. If she still had the same personality as before, I wouldn't feel the slightest bit. But now she has completely changed. What they did is too much. A portion. Moreover, it's not like Zhao Qian had to rely on their family. It was Lu Zhenqiang who went to Zhou's family time and time again to make sure that Zhao Qian agreed to marry him. What does this mean now? Yes, it's true that they are wrong, but people are different. How can you be so angry with them, right? Sister-in-law Yin looked at her funny. If you lead troops, you will definitely protect them. He. Chu Xia laughed. Can I understand that you are praising me for my loyalty? Yes, sister-in-law Yin nodded and said, but I suggest you worry less now. After the babies come out, I will never stop you from doing whatever you want to do. It's okay, I'm not really angry. Chu Xia smiled and hugged Mrs. Yin's arm. I haven't chatted with you for a long time. I've been wanting to ask, how are you getting along with Aunt Wan now? Money. Are Yan and Qiandikan not angry with you? Look at you, you just love to worry. Sister-in-law Yin smiled and scratched her nose. Don't worry, we get along well. Yanyan and Dikan are both very cute children. I like them very much. Chu Xia breathed a long sigh of relief. That's good, that's good. While the two were muttering, the phone rang again. Chu Xia hurried over to pick it up. Luo Xiaoqing's excited voice came over. Chu Xia, is it you? Yes. Before Chu Xia could say another word, Luo Xiaoqing spoke again. Let me tell you, your cousin is really courageous. They are still discussing here. She has already brought her luggage to find it. She said she had figured it out and would no longer stay in Liu's house. She said she could tolerate it however she wanted, but she couldn't accept that family looked down upon her family and didn't fight for words. Even if she was single in this life, she didn't want to. I can't wrong myself anymore. Chu Xia. Well, it happened so suddenly that she didn't even know what to say, so she just held up the microphone stupidly, in a daze. Are you surprised too? Luo Xiaoqing chuckled twice and continued, now everyone is discussing what to do next. Zhao Qian means that she will go back to the village with her family. He said that when he meets the right person, he will marry him. If he doesn't, he will take care of your second uncle and second aunt at home. Hey, why are you here? Then, the voice changed to Zhao Qian's. Xia, I made you worry. Don't worry, I'm fine. My relationship with Lu Zhenqiang as husband and wife ends here. When I came here just now, I beat Lu Zhenfen. I wanted to endure it, but I couldn't bear it anymore. Then, I also told Lu Zhenqiang that Lu Zhenqiang was inhumane. I don't know if you think I'm doing this viciously, but if their family doesn't want to make things easier for me and scolds me and my family for bullying others, then I'll just do what they want. Don't worry, Xia, I will never do this kind of thing again. This time, no matter what I did is right or wrong, you will forgive me once, okay? Sister, well done. After a pause, Chu Xia added, Sister, I support you, and I believe that with your current mentality, you will definitely meet a man who treats you sincerely. I'm borrowing your good words. Zhao Qian chuckled, don't tell me, I really came out of that family, I'm not sad at all, I feel very relaxed. I tolerated them before because I didn't want to cause embarrassment, but now that I think about it, I am really stupid. If they don't like me, they will never treat me well just because I tolerate them. Xia, I also told Mr. Zhou that Lu Zhenqiang's affairs should be left to them alone, and they don't have to stand up for me. I believe that their family will get retribution sooner or later for their temper. Just like me, if I didn't do well in the past, won't I be punished now? I guess when I get back to my hometown, I will say whatever I want. Xia, I'm really sorry for you, but I have to make you suffer with me again. To be continued. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1017. Second update. It's okay, if you are unwilling, you can give it a try. Zhang Qi still smiled lightly, if you can escape from the car, we will never catch you back. Yamiru's eyes fell on the car glass. Violence is okay, Zhang Qi continued to encourage, otherwise you will be shocked when you get there. It's not like your character to be so hesitant. You're waiting to see my joke, aren't you? Yamiru simply took off her shoes and lay half on the seat behind her. You think I'm a 3-year-old kid, but if you say a few words like that, I'll be really stupid. Have you tried it? To be honest, if you keep silent, I will really give it a try. Now. She curled her lips, I'm not going to make you a condiment to relieve your boredom. Ha ha ha. Zhang Qi laughed, to be honest, you look much cuter like this than before. Why are you willing to be sent away like this? So what if you are unwilling? Yamiru glanced at him sideways, is it possible that you will be kind enough to let me go? However, I can also tell you clearly that as long as you are willing to let me go, no matter what the conditions, I will always promise you. The subtext couldn't be more obvious. Even Ma Chao, who had been silent all the time, couldn't help but glance at her. She really learned a lot, no wonder such a shameless woman would betray the boss. However, fortunately, she betrayed the boss. Otherwise, if such a woman becomes a sister-in-law, the boss will be miserable. Zhang Qi raised his eyebrows, you still want to go back and seek revenge on Lin Chuxia? I had no intention of retaliating against her, but now that Zhou Mikang has done this, I would be really sorry for myself if I didn't do something for her. Of course, if you don't give me a chance, it's useless if I don't give in. I can only do what I want to do in a hurry. As for whether I will have a chance in this life, I can't be sure. Only. Since you asked it like this, it means you have this intention, right? It is not a good habit for a grown man to play with women. I'm so handsome. If I'm not a big man, I'm not a big man, it doesn't matter. Zhang Qi showed his snow-white teeth, which looked as infuriating as possible. Yamiru also met her opponent today. Since returning to China, she had never seen this type of Chinese man before, so Zhang Qi's words made her stunned for a long time before snorting coldly, shameless. When it comes to shamelessness, if you dare to claim to be number one, no one will dare to claim to be number two. Right, Zhang Qi said while poking Ma Chao, do you agree with what I say? You're so boring. Ma Chao glared at him, aren't you tired of talking useless words with her? Hey, being idle is also idle. Otherwise, how boring would this journey be? Zhang Qi looked at Yamiru with a smile. Do you think this is true? Speaking of which, you should thank me. When you go in, you will understand that the people there are not very good at communicating, and they are not very good at smiling. Therefore, the feeling of chatting with me now, you'd better keep it in mind. Maybe it will become the motivation for you to stay here. How come Zhou Mikang has such an unruly man like you? Yamiru frowned and looked at him. Who sent you here? Did you deliberately frame Zhou Mikang? Yes, you are absolutely right. Zhang Qi gave her a thumbs up. Just continue to think along this line of thinking, and the truth will get closer and closer to you. People from the Lin family sent you here. Yamiru said in a positive tone. She is not from the Lin family in the capital. Is this a sign of goodwill to her? Is this done on purpose? Let me tell you, if Zhou Mikang knew what you were doing, he would never spare you. What he hates most is this kind of deception. If you don't want to regret it later, just send me back quickly. What a genius. Zhang Qi clapped his hands. You can come up with such a reason and think that I will let you go, right? It's impossible. Keep thinking of other reasons. Yamiru has been abroad these years, and she was not a very scheming woman in the first place. Otherwise, she would not have made her life what it is now. Therefore, after being misled by Zhang Qi so deliberately, she really couldn't figure out the situation. She felt like a mess in her heart, and she couldn't smooth it out no matter how hard she tried, and she became extremely irritable. For her, there is nothing to be afraid of. Even if she is really kidnapped, she is not afraid. In fact, it really helps her. Therefore, she has absolutely no scruples when speaking, and she is eager to anger the other person. Do something impulsive. Glancing at her calves and feet, she secretly made up her mind that if her own trick was useless, then she would use these two people as a trick. She didn't believe they dared to kill her. Although her grandfather was cruel and sent her to the base, she was of Ye family's blood after all. Grandpa could handle it by himself. If outsiders bullied her, it would be a slap in the Ye family's face. She didn't believe that her grandfather could watch her being raped. Insult. With this thought in mind, she hit her head against the car window. Unfortunately, when she was about to faint after hitting her head, the car window remained motionless, and neither did the two men sitting in front of her. Zhang Qi's words before had already made her realize that this car window was not ordinary glass, and it was impossible for her to break it, so she wanted to hurt herself, but unfortunately, she really couldn't work hard. However, even if she couldn't work hard and the feeling was uncomfortable, looking at the two people who were indifferent and sincere, she felt a deep sadness in her heart. Seeing this, even if she knocked herself unconscious, these two people don't care either. Really dead? She really has no courage. Helpless, she had no choice but to stop her movements, half lying there and staring blankly at the roof of the car. Glancing at her, Zhang Qi stopped irritating her. In fact, he just didn't like this woman, so he couldn't help but say a few words to stab her. Now it seems that those words are of no use to this woman. Also, for a person who wants face, you can use morality to restrain her. For such a person, unless she is willing, everything others say is a waste of words. There was a long silence in the carriage. At this time, Chu Xia was sitting opposite Zhou Hai. It was Zhou Mikang who arranged for her to meet Zhou Hai and have a deep chat. If she could open up his heart, she would be fulfilling her obligation to Zhejiang. Of course, Chu Xia did this not for Zhejiang, but for Lin Mengran. Judging from the current development, the chance of Zhejiang and Lin Mengran becoming a couple is very high. She didn't want to create a barrier with Zhejiang because of Zhou Hai's matter, making it difficult for Lin Mengran to be caught in the middle. Moreover, she was also a little curious about Zhou Hai's persistence. Zhou Hai looked at her with indifference, even mixed with hatred. He had no interaction with her. Obviously, He hated her because of Yamairu, which made Chusia even more curious. What method did Yamairu use to make a man be so persistent with her? He didn't speak, and neither did Chusia. Just sitting there in silence, time passed by. In the end, Zohai was annoyed by Chusia's stare and spoke first. Staring at a man like this is extremely impolite and shameless. Don't you know? Why, you feel guilty after being stared at by me. Chusia looked at him indifferently. It is indeed inappropriate to stare at a strange man with whom we have no relationship, but for you. Her fingers were on the table knock. Is there any need to pay attention to it? Zohai unconsciously followed her words. Why can't you be particular about me? What do I need to be particular about a man who doesn't distinguish between right and wrong and wants to help a bad woman to harm me? Seeing that he was about to speak, Chusia said first, don't say you like her. I believe she is innocent. Something like that. Zohai swallowed back the words he was about to say. Indeed, he wanted to tell the difference for Yamairu. Moreover, he was very, very angry. Why did he arrest them all like this? Do you just rely on your own power? If it had been a fair fight, he didn't believe he would be here now. This is a man with all his thoughts engraved on his face. Chusia easily understood his thoughts and looked at him with a smile. Just because you cover your eyes and heart doesn't mean that others should be like you cover your eyes and mind. Right and wrong have been reversed for you, but it doesn't mean that others will follow your will. In fact, you know very well in your heart whether she is pitiful and innocent, but you don't want to admit it. Zohai, you are a very selfish person. You only have your own preferences in your heart. You don't care about the life and death of your parents and brothers. No matter how much they pay for you, you can't see it. You think that your sacrifice for love is great, you think that you are worthy of praise for risking everything for love, or you will say that it doesn't matter whether Yamairu loves you or not, as long as you love her and are willing to give everything for her. However, you are actually unwilling in your heart, so you try your best to help her escape. What you want is her final recognition of you, so as to cover up your emotional ignorance and failure. If you were really together with Yamairu, your behavior would definitely not be the same as it is today. You would treat her like your own family members and just ignore her. Overall, you are just an ignorant person. Another selfish man. Identification completed. You. Zohai was so angry that his lips trembled. You are so savage. Really? Chusia pursed her lips and smiled. Are you angry because I said the central thing? I might as well tell you that if it weren't for your brother's sake, I would never sit here and talk to you about this. Does your future have anything to do with me? Am I a little afraid of Yamairu? Don't deny what I said. Just because you are sitting across from me now, it explains everything. You know very well who my husband is. If he was a fool, do you think he could reach where he is today? So, keep your eyes open, look more, and think more before you act, okay?